The thing about college basketball is if you want to make money as a gambler, as a handicapper, you got to be willing to put in the time. Because let's face it, there's 347 Division I teams. Now, if you're sitting down and have a conversation with me, I can probably tell you something about at least 200 to 250 of them. But there are some teams that I follow. But every day is a new day. And every day you turn the page and you start fresh and you start looking at the lines and certain games stick out. Yesterday, Friday, of course, there's no NBA. So there's all the Ivy League games, which occasionally I dip my feet into the Ivy League, but I'm not a big fan of the Ivy. So I'm looking at some of the other games. And I had 3 games that kind of stood out on yesterday's card. 2 of them I used here on the video report, and I split with those complimentary plays. One, I gave you Oakland over Alpo. That was an easy win. The other one was a loser with Richmond against VCU. But the game that I used as my best bet, which I won again, and I'll tell you what, for as lousy as I've been feeling the last couple of weeks, actually the last 3 months when I think about it, it's a damn good thing I'm on a hell of a roll with my best bet selections. The game that I chose was in the Sun Belt Conference, Arkansas State against Arkansas Little Rock. What did I know about Arkansas Little Rock going into yesterday, other than the fact that their nickname was the Trojans? Absolutely nothing, as in zero. Hadn't looked at them once all year. Probably hadn't looked at them in 3 or 4 years. Arkansas State, though, I knew a little bit about them because last Saturday they were at Texas Arlington. And Texas Arlington is one of those little teams that has been like a little niche team for me that I always like looking at. So I had looked at them at least on a little bit of a level, but not really in depth. But that was the game I started focusing on yesterday. So I'm scouring the internet. I'm looking at all the beat writer stories about it. And I thought to myself, my God, Arkansas State, what a play. And if you got my play yesterday, and it goes with what I said yesterday here on the video report, and let me just refresh in case you didn't watch the video yesterday or get my play. So on the video report yesterday, I mentioned about in the VCU Richmond game, I find it interesting that when it comes to college basketball and when you're handicapping the games, that you have the overnight lines, which are from sports books offshore, which you can immediately bet on, that I always like to wait till about 11:30 to about 1 o'clock Eastern time, because that's when you're going to see the line moves. And often those line moves in college basketball will change so dramatically that will affect whether I'm on a game, off a game, or sometimes in a rare occasion switching sides, which I did unsuccessfully yesterday with the VCU Richmond play. I originally liked VCU minus 3.5. That was the overnight price. But when the line went to 5.5, I was a little worried about the Rams as a road favorite. So instead, as I noted here on the video report, I gave you out Richmond instead. Well, hey, another thing to always consider, never go against your first inclination, right? But still, I thought that was a wise move. The other part of the equation, which you didn't see unless you got my best bet yesterday on Arkansas Little Rock. Arkansas Little Rock was a 9-point favorite on the overnight line. I waited. I wanted to see what was going to go on with that game, because if that line went up anymore, I was going to go with Oakland as my best bet yesterday. And Oakland, of course, was an easy winner against Valpo last night. Instead, it was like a gift from the gods. That line dropped down to 7.5 points. Well, immediately that put me on Arkansas Little Rock. What happens? Arkansas Little Rock wins the game by 9. I get the cover. Again, you often have to look and wait for those line movements. Not as critical on Saturdays, however, or on Sundays, because generally those lines that you're seeing on Saturday, they're coming out at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock afternoon on Friday Eastern time. You're not going to see a lot of movement on them until maybe 11:30, 12 o'clock. But, as a handicapper here, as a guy that runs the websites, we've got to have our plays up by 9 o'clock Eastern time for you, because you've got to have time to go shop around for the best price. So it's a little different. And that's where you have to rely more on your skills to project lines, which if you do this every day, you have a strong sense of where teams are going to move, where the public is going to shift the lines, where the money's going to flow on games. And you always have to anticipate line movements. Okay, complimentary plays after the 3-0 sweep on Thursday. Took the split last night. Let's start with a couple of games here. I've got 3 more plays for today's card. First one, SMU, a game tonight at Houston. SMU is a 2 to 2.5 point favorite in this one. I warned you the other day when the Mustangs were playing host to Tulane, a team that they could wake up, roll out of bed with no preparation, and beat on most days by 30 points. They were a 24.5 point favorite. I warned you that I thought that was one of those letdown situations that you have to be so aware of in college basketball, and it was a stay away game. because SMU was just a couple of days removed from a huge revenge win last Sunday at home at Moody Coliseum against Cincinnati. And it showed. Mustangs pretty much just were sleepwalking in the first half of that game. They were down by 15 points at halftime. They were laying 24 points in that game. They finally rallied for the 80-75 win. But what has happened now is that you have the overreaction line. Listen, they didn't give a damn about Tulane. They were still celebrating Cincinnati. They looked past Tulane. They had beaten them by 16 points on the road in the first meeting. They're not going to overlook Houston tonight, okay? Now, you're getting the benefit of their poor performance on Tulane influence the line today. If they had beaten Tulane by 30 points, they would be laying 4.5 probably today. You're getting them at 2.5. Why not ride SMU? They've won 9 straight, 14 of their last 15. The only loss in that stretch was a 2-point loss at Cincinnati. They beat Houston at home 85-64 back on January 21st as an 8.5-point favorite. And that was a wire-to-wire rout. And that is the most points allowed by the Cougars in a single game this season. SMU shot 56.6% in the game. They held Houston to 40% shooting. SMU dominated the boards 35-23. The fact that they played so well defensively is no big surprise because they have the number 3 defense in the country. Everybody talks about Virginia, number 1 defense, but SMU is number 3. They're only giving up 58.6 points a game. They're 5-0-2 against the spread in conference road games this season, 6-1 straight up on the conference road again. The only straight up loss coming by 2 Cincinnati, and I like them once again to take care of business against Houston here on the road this evening. Another complimentary play. 2 of my teams that I've mentioned often to you here that I like riding at home. Texas Arlington and Marshall. Just gave you Marshall at home a couple of nights ago, right? Today, bucking the trends. I am going against Marshall at home today because today, Marshall, even though they're a 4.5-point favorite, they are taking on a vastly superior team. The number 1 team in Conference USA going to Huntington, West Virginia today, and that is Middle Tennessee State. Quick, Middle Tennessee State nickname. Oh, come on. It's an easy one, guys. Blue Raiders. Not even going to give you a chance on that one. You should know this one by now. Where are they at? Come on. I've actually been to this town a couple of times driving across country. Stopped there. Stopped at a Verizon store to get my phone fixed, in fact. Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Anyway, they're 23-4, 13-1 straight up in conference play. Won 69-57 at home when these two played back on January 12th. I like Middle Tennessee minus the 4.5 points in this one. Here's one for you. Unless you're looking at the stats for men's basketball on a regular basis, like I live and die on that page from the NC2A, the Blue Raiders are the number 11 team in scoring defense in the country. Who would have thunk that, right? And if I gave you a million choices, you never would have given that as a right answer, right? Giving up just 62.2 points a game. Now, we know Marshall plays no defense. It's just not their MO. They want to play high octane, press the ball, run up and down the floor, and consequently, when you're playing that type of up-tempo attack, you give up a lot of points. 347 Division 1A teams, they're ranked 339 in terms of scoring defense, giving up 83.7 points a game. Middle Tennessee State will take advantage of every gift point and gift bucket that Marshall will afford them today. Their only loss, Middle Tennessee State, in conference play this season was coming at UTEP by 3 points back on February 4th. This is the same UTEP team that has been on a roll. I just gave you the free pick on UTEP on Thursday night, in fact. When they won in overtime. I can't remember who the hell they beat, but they were a winner, and they've won 7 of their last 9 games. They're on a red-hot roll. UTEP is the only team to have beaten Marshall at home this year. Marshall 12-1 at home, and that one, UTEP killed them 91-68. That's why I think Middle Tennessee State is going to be able to score at will against this thundering herd defense here. So, again, also Marshall, one of their top scorers, Steve Browning, one of their guards, a senior, missed half the game the other night against UAB, which was a big revenge game for Marshall, too. They had lost 8 straight in the series. They had lost 7 straight at home in that series. They won that game. He missed the second half of that game because of ongoing back problems. He averages like 15.5 points a game. He's questionable for this contest. Meanwhile, the Blue Raiders are coming off a 26-point win at Western Kentucky. And they're 9-2 on the road, so I like them in this one. And again, big game for them to maintain their lead in the conference. So Middle Tennessee State is another one. Let's see. Next one. Boy, West Virginia and Texas Tech. You saw what happened with West Virginia and Kansas the other night on Monday night. West Virginia blowing a 14-point lead at Kansas in the final 2 minutes and 46 seconds of regulation, and then falling in overtime to the Jayhawks. How do they rebound? Well, they're playing at home, first of all, and they're got the added motivation of taking on a Texas Tech team that beat them on a three-pointer with 6 seconds to go in overtime in Lubbock when they met back in January. So, which West Virginia team shows up? You just never know with this team, but I'm willing to go with them in this spot, minus 11.5 points, even though Texas Tech has played extremely well in their last couple of games. Home games, 2 in a row, coming off an upset win against Baylor, coming off a loss by 1.2 Kansas, but Tech outside of Lubbock on the Big 12 highway, not a very good team. 0-6 on the conference road. They lost to Iowa State by 7. By Kansas, they lost in Lawrence by 17 points. They lost to Oklahoma by 9. They lost in Waco by 4. They lost in Austin to Texas by 4. They lost to TCU by 1. I just think that West Virginia, because you've had the extra time off, having played on Monday, will be refocused for this game. I also think the key here for West Virginia is that in the game in Lubbock earlier in the season, they only forced 13 turnovers. So credit Texas Tech for playing very well and exhibiting some great ball handling skills, because let's face it, West Virginia, number 1 in the nation in terms of turnovers forced, almost 22 per game. If they get their average at home in this one, Texas Tech plays a little sloppy. That's going to create some scoring opportunities for the Mountaineers, who, again, I think will be refocused after losing that game against Kansas, and they'll be able to get back and get the win in that one. So those are going to be your complimentary plays. I'm going to go with West Virginia at home. I'm going to go with SMU at Houston, and I'm also going to back a Middle Tennessee State as the road favorite at Marshall. I wish you well, guys, and I hopefully will be here with a video on Sunday. Remember, when I'm not here with a video report because I've been under the weather for so many months, I'm starting to forget what it was like to feel healthy. You can always get the free picks otherwise on the homepage when they're not available here on video. Wish you well, guys, and talk to you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.